All we've got to do now is to start pumping.
What is going on, everybody? After a summer full of deep dives, we are officially back in full force with the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I am your host, Marcus Whitman. And man, it is so good to be back. Football season starting tomorrow. And I am thrilled to announce for this show, we will now be going live every single Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, today's show is pre-recorded. I did have some wedding planning that I needed to head off to this afternoon, but you can count on this show now every single Wednesday up on YouTube at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and that will allow you to get some questions in for the show via Super Chat there on YouTube now as well at the end of every show. But yeah, this is going to be an awesome podcast ahead, a bit of an epic season kickoff edition, a couple big topics that I wanted to really make videos on before the season started, and I just didn't have time to make them as individual videos. So no better opportunity than to use this show to do that. We are going to be doing my top 10 breakout candidates for the 2021 NFL season, a list I'm very excited about. Also going to be doing my top 100 players list. Many people asking me to make one of these lists after the NFL Network dropped their terrible list. So going to be making my own list on this show as well, and then we'll get into the Patreon mailbag. But a couple pieces of housekeeping that I want to get out of the way here. New season kicking off, and I wanted to announce my content schedule here for this upcoming season, what you can really count on from me. So Mondays won't be any content. That's when I'm trying to catch up and watch all of the games. But then Tuesdays, every morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, bright and early, you can count on my weekly power rankings dropping. And then Wednesdays, as I just mentioned, the Fully Inflated Football Podcast goes live on YouTube at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Thursdays, you can count on my weekly NFL picks. Now, every single week, that will be on Patreon for all-star level patrons, except for the very first week of each month, NFL week. So this Thursday, tomorrow, I will be doing my weekly picks on YouTube, and then the rest of the month will be on Patreon. The first week of October will be on YouTube. The rest of the month will be on Patreon. Had a ton of success with my picks last year, hoping to keep that rolling. So that'll be on Thursdays, no time for that. And then Fridays, hopefully every Friday afternoon, can't give a specific time on this one, but Studs and Duds, a lot of you guys' favorite video that I do every week, recapping the risers and fallers from a player evaluation perspective from the week before. That is hopefully going to be coming out every Friday. That's my biggest project every week. So especially now that I'm hoping to include some more film with that, depending on copyright and the NFL All-22 stuff that Game Pass right now just doesn't have all 22, which is obviously a problem. But hopefully Fridays, those will be coming out. There will be Saturdays when it comes out, and there will be weeks, I'm traveling a lot this fall, there will be weeks where I'm not able to get it done. But that'll be Fridays. And then also just some miscellaneous content that'll be scattered throughout here. So my goal is to make every month one video that's kind of a film-based, narrative-based video, just kind of using the film to support a take or talk about a narrative that's going out throughout the season. So that'll be once a month on YouTube, and then also going to be one film breakdown per month up on Patreon. Usually going to be doing an NFL quarterback, probably going to be doing a lot of these rookies, doing film rooms on them, some of these second-year quarterbacks as well. Probably going to be the main focus for those Patreon film rooms. And then as far as Madden rebuilds go, a lot of you guys are wondering where the Madden content is. I am waiting for that big scouting overhaul update to come out. I'm going to post one episode of my Bengals rebuild when that does come out on this main channel on YouTube. But make sure you are following TFG Plays, my secondary channel, where I am moving all of my Madden content, keeping this channel really in-house for NFL analysis and all that stuff. And yeah, that's the content you can expect for this year. I wanted to get that out of the way just so we're clear on what you guys can look forward to this upcoming season. Gonna be a freaking good one. I also need to take a moment before we get into this epic season preview show to remind you that this show is brought to you by my Patreon. It's patreon.com/thatfranchiseguy, where you can support the show and become a part of the show by gaining access to the mailbag and also getting access to some of that exclusive content that we just mentioned, things like weekly picks at the star level, film breakdowns at the MVP level. So lots of good stuff there available on Patreon. This channel literally would not exist without Patreon. Helps me do this for a living, pay my bills, put food in my belly. So thank you everybody that has signed up on Patreon. And I think it is well overdue that I do some shout outs as well. So I wanted to shout out first off my top 10 all-time supporters here. Justin Nyland, David MacArthur, Brandon Schrakenghost, Matt, Trey Schneider, Lions, Jim Slenderdorn, Tobias Wenzel, and Shane. That's just the top 10. A lot of you guys are right behind these guys. I'm hoping to get you some shout-outs as well. A lot of outstanding long-term supporters. You guys are the absolute best, so thank you to you. But I also want to shout out everybody that has signed up here just this September when I announced the weekly picks going live. A lot of people getting excited for that exclusive content there on Patreon. So, Red 5, Jaden Kozak, Braden Bush signing up for a full year of Star Patreon. Tucker Barnes, Caleb in the MVP tier, Xavier Johnson as well, MVP tier, Jack Houchick, Nolan Scales, another MVP with Matthew Ray, Trenton Rollins, Micah Berkness, Danny Ackner, Jimmy Morgan, Joseph Ortiz, Robert Evans, Josh Hubbard, Drew M., Mark Gilbert, Luke, and one last MVP level, Chase Covert. So thank you guys for your patronage. Really excited for this season. And let's get into the show. Sorry for throwing all that at you, but definitely some housekeeping that we needed to use this video to take care of. But let's get into the top 10 breakouts for the 2021 NFL season. And my biggest rule here was no rookies. And I really wanted to try and focus on guys that are really going to take a tier jump up. You know, guys that are going to go from replacement level starters to stars, or guys that are going to go from stars to huge mega superstars are really the what I was looking for on this list. And I tried to get some names that maybe aren't getting a whole lot of traction. Some of these will be popular as well, but let's get into it. My number 10 breakout here, I just want to get this graphic ready here. All right, there we go. Nasir Adderley is my number 10 breakout player for the 2021 NFL season. So Nasir Adderley came out of Delaware 2 years ago. I got to get my years straight because it feels like 2020 just didn't happen. But he would have been in the 2019 draft. Was a second-round pick. Most people had him kind of in that first to second-round range, but a really versatile kind of do-it-all safety with athleticism and size and instincts and just a guy that projected as a really good NFL player, and it just has not happened to this point in his time for the Chargers. And there's been a lot of different factors for that. They've had different schemes. He hasn't been able to play next to Derwin James. I think he himself hasn't been healthy, and he just has not been a very good player at all. But heading into 2021, it's his third season, which is a big year for him to really cement himself as a starter. He has all the opportunities in the world. The guys behind him just aren't really players that I think will push him for his job, and I think they really have heavy expectations for him, and that's a staff that I trust with Brandon Staley. The guys behind him, I think it's Alohi Gilman and the Georgia not Mark Gilbert, but they drafted like a 7th-round corner that they're converting to safety out of Georgia that just doesn't have the upside. So it really is all on Nasir Adderley here in this Brandon Staley quarters split safety defense that really is another big reason why Nasir Adderley should have a big breakout season, because Brandon Staley has been just a life force for safeties. You go back to his time in Denver. Of course, Vic Fangio deserves credit for this as well. But just from a coaching perspective, I think he communicates what these guys need to do very well. But from a schematic perspective as well, you're talking about this cover 4 system that if you find guys like Kareem Jackson, Justin Simmons, John Johnson, who have really high IQ and understanding of the game to run quarters coverages where you really got to understand who you're supposed to pick up, but you also have to have kind of that quickness to be able to come down a little bit closer to the box and convert those into man coverage very quickly. You often will be covering in routes, out routes, posts, corners from that safety position that your typical, cover 2 and cover 3, you're not doing quite as much closer to the line of scrimmage. Other systems will have you playing much further back, and that's really what Nasir Adderley has had to do. Now in a really quarters-heavy system with a great coach, I think Nasir Adderley is a great skill set to break out. I compared him to Malcolm Jenkins coming out, who is a converted corner, who does really succeed in man coverage, or at least he did in his prime. And I think Nasir Adderley is really poised to go from really a poor starter to a stud/star player for the Chargers, and is a big pivotal piece of a defense that has big expectations. I think having Derwin James next to him as well is only going to help. So Nasir Adderley is my number 10 breakout. My number 9 player here is going to be Matt Hennessy of the Atlanta Falcons, probably someone that most people are not aware of. So he was a mid-round pick for the Atlanta Falcons last season and was, to me, the perfect kind of draft and develop player here, and is now also a guy that's entering a scheme that is perfect for him. So coming out, Matt Hennessy out of, was he Pittsburgh? I should have written these down, but I'm pretty sure he was Pittsburgh coming out. Really athletic center, kind of Jason Kelsey-esque in his ability to just get on the move, whether you're running a wide zone, whether he's pulling or moving in on screens. That was his game. Really athletic, but undersized center. Someone that probably needed to beef up a little bit, develop that anchor and pass protection, and not someone that was really ready to play year one. He got some reps at guard, and you saw that he was not a guy that was really ready to go year one. But now, another reason I like Matt Hennessy was the timeline was perfect because he had Alex Mack ahead of him, who was just on his last year of his contract and ready to be phased out in Atlanta. So Alex Mack has moved on, and Matt Hennessy is ready to step in. And the cherry on top here is they are bringing back the Kyle Shanahan-style offense with Arthur Smith coming in. And that offense is predicated on outside zone runs and moving pockets to create protection for the quarterback, and also to protect against players with potentially poor anchors. If you look at teams like the Rams and the Niners and the Vikings, these teams have quicker, undersized centers because their ability to reset pockets, get on the move, seal off nose tackles in the outside zone game, that's the priority in those systems. And in Atlanta, Matt Hennessy is going to thrive in that. So I really like how he projects as a run blocker, and I think he's going to develop as a pass protector as well. So Matt Hennessy for the Atlanta Falcons, I think, is an ascending young player to keep an eye on at center. Then my number 8 breakout here is Dawson Knox, tight end for the Buffalo Bills. I really like Dawson Knox coming out, and he kind of fit that mold of George Kittle, in that, maybe not quite at a freaky level, and obviously isn't the same player, but just as far as a really athletic guy that just was not in a position in college that was really conducive to him putting up big numbers and getting on a lot of teams' radars. Because George Kittle at Iowa, they just didn't throw him the ball. They just used him as a blocker. Same thing with Dawson Knox, because he played at Ole Miss with frickin' DK Metcalf and A.J. Brown. So he just wasn't getting utilized in the passing game. He was basically, an overqualified, over-athletic, pass-protecting tight end. And he's had to develop those skill sets, and he hasn't even been the full-time starter for the Buffalo Bills. But now he is the full-time starter there. And there's a void to be picked up in that passing game with John Brown leaving. I know Emmanuel Sanders is there, Gabriel Davis, but I think Dawson Knox getting the starting reps in year 3 is going to show a lot of strides. I don't know if he's going to be, I'm almost confident to say he's not going to be George Kittle, but I think he can ascend to that top 10 tight end range. He has a ton of athleticism. He's a guy with legit, low-end 4.5 speed, which is very good for a tight end. He's got size. He's a good blocker. Just needs to kind of put it all together. And tight end is a position that takes some time for most players. Most guys don't just come into the league and are awesome right away. So I think Dawson Knox poised totally for a big season in 2021. Then we have another tight end at number 7, and this is a much more well-known player, TJ Hawkinson. And Hawkinson started to show that he was a star tight end last year, and he's already kind of in that top 5 to 7 range. But I mentioned that some of these guys are going to be players that I think can go from star to superstar. And right now, TJ Hawkinson, top 10 pick. No doubt he's a good player. But I'm talking about him entering that Darren Waller, Travis Kelce, George Kittle tier of tight ends as a player that is really a high upside tight end. That's why he went in the top 10 of the draft. He has athleticism to create separation. He has the size to be an outstanding contested catch, go-to, third down target. He's awesome after the catch. But on top of that, he is already one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. And the cherry on top here is, similar to like Dawson Knox and some of these other players. Some guys take time to develop. So with TJ Hawkinson, I think you see that. But his new head coach, Dan Campbell, was brought in from the New Orleans Saints. And you look at what Dan Campbell did as the tight ends coach for the New Orleans Saints, it's remarkable work, and that's why he got looks as a head coach. Every single tight end that they plugged in, everyone that was coached under Dan Campbell, learned how to become one of the best blocking tight ends in the league and contributed in other ways as well. Josh Hill down there, Taysom Hill, coached by Dan Campbell, a great rookie season from Adam Troutman. Jared Cook played some of his best football down there. Dan Campbell is a tight end guru. He gets these guys, and now he is one of the most talented ones in the league to work with TJ Hawkinson. So it's a match made in heaven there. I think TJ Hawkins ascends to, no doubt, top 5 tight end and begins to enter that conversation of top tier tight end. Is the passing game going to be explosive enough? Does he get enough publicity to be mentioned in that light? That's to be determined with the Detroit Lions, but I think TJ Hawkinson will be outstanding this season. Number 6 here, Noah Igbenogany, cornerback for the Miami Dolphins. See, I'm not just a Miami Dolphins hater, guys. I can see some of the good things they've got brewing. And Noah Igbenogany, another player that really was not a day one pick. He's a guy that really didn't play a lot at Auburn and has elite athletic ability. Kind of reminds me of Jamel Dean coming out, who also was just kind of not a super productive college player, but the traits are outstanding for this guy. He's north of 6 feet tall, super fast, and has the quickness to run man coverage, which they run a ton for Miami. He also is in a position where he's not going to be put in a lot of difficult spots, which will help him learn. Because he's got Xavier Howard, he's got Byron Jones on the outside. Igbenogany can really focus on guarding slot receivers, man coverage, and understanding that part of the game. Now, I think he has upside to eventually replace one of those two corners on the outside. But for now, Noah Igbenogany is poised for a breakout season. It's really was the plan here, was don't put too much on his plate year one, get him with a great coaching staff, and bring him along. It's a pretty self-explanatory one, and I'm excited to see him hopefully take the reins as the full-time slot corner. Now, they've brought in some other guys like Justin Coleman, and they still have, what's his name? Nick Needham there, I believe, still on the team, who have slot experience and could challenge him for reps. So he's got to still earn that job, but I have high expectations for Noah Igbenogany this season. Now my number 5 breakout, Brian Burns, edge rusher for the Carolina Panthers. Pretty self-explanatory on this one as well. He really took strides forward in the second half of last season, a top 15 pick 2 years ago. Really the timing here just lines up. And you saw what he was able to accomplish last year, not just showing that he's not just a speed rusher, which at Florida State he really was. He just kind of ran around the edge, and he had uber athletic traits, like 6'5", just super athletic dude, incredibly fast. But last year he showed that he's got some pass rush moves, and he's actually developed some aspect of strength to his game. Now, he's never going to be a true bull rusher, but enough to kind of handle contacting and get through tackles that way as well. So starting to really show that he's a full diversified pass rusher, can beat you in a lot of different ways other than just running around the corner. But that threat of his get off and speed and bend around the edge is what really helps him accomplish all those things. So a guy that really emerged as one of the top edge rushers down the stretch last year, and now heading into next year, I'm talking about going from star to superstar, right? Entering that conversation with guys as good as Khalil Mack and Myles Garrett and the Bosas and TJ Watt. So that's really the expectation for Brian Burns, and it's all about him fulfilling that. He's got all the potential in the world. He's on the right trajectory. So Brian Burns going to make my breakout candidate, going from star to elite and superstar next season. My number 4 breakout is going to be Paris Campbell, wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. I loved Paris Campbell coming out at a first-round pick on him. Just one of the most elite run-after-catch receivers that you'll see for a college receiver. He's right up there with some of the guys that have come out in recent years. Guys like Deebo Samuel, DJ Moore comes to mind, even some of the guys in this year's class as well, Laviska Shenault. He was there with those guys as far as just put the ball in his hands. He'll make a guy miss. He'll run away from you. A guy that has shiftiness and power in space with the ball in his hands. The question for him coming out was developing some of that route running. And unfortunately, this is a player that just has not stayed healthy. He's played, like 3 or 4 games in 2 years? Well, he's healthy right now. And when you watch him play in the first 2 games for the Indianapolis Colts last year, it wasn't just like, oh, cool, they're being creative, putting the ball in his hands and letting him go to work in that area, which we knew he was going to be good at. He was shaking top corners and showing high-end route running. He just looked different. And then, of course, goes down with the injury. It was a huge blow to the Colts season. And if that guy takes the field, if he's healthy, he will break out. I'm very confident in the talent there, but he's up there in age now, and the injuries have started to add up. So that's really what's been holding him back, and it's been kind of a buzzkill for the Indianapolis Colts. But I do believe the talent is there, and I just hope he can stay healthy this year and get that true breakout, because the Colts need a guy like Paris Campbell to step up as well. My number 3 breakout is Draymond Jones, another potentially more under-the-radar player. Definitely not for Broncos fans, though. So Draymond Jones, I loved coming out. I, at a first-round grade on him, moved him into the top end of the second, but I think he ended up as a top 50 player for me in that draft class. And I actually compared him, physically speaking, to an actual edge rusher in Cameron Jordan for the Saints. Kind of similar as well to a guy like Peyton Turner that the Saints spent a first-round pick on this year, though I thought Draymond Jones was a much better player than Peyton Turner coming out. He was another guy that needed some time to develop. And now in year 3, with the flashes he's shown, he's got the opportunity. He's got a healthy D-line around him with Von Miller. Shelby Harris is fully emerged. Bradley Chubb. Draymond Jones is going to be the 4th man on that pass rush. And if he clicks into place, that Broncos defense has no excuse to not be one of the 5 best in the league. And the nice thing about Draymond Jones is his get-off length and power. They'll actually use him as an edge rusher, and they certainly did last year with Von Miller out. This year he'll be playing much more from the interior, but he's a game wrecker on the inside. He is awesome for stunts. He can shoot gaps. He can line up as a 3 technique and come across the guard's face, put some pressure on the center. He can just straight up win with a bull rush. Really excited to see Draymond Jones this season, who I think can emerge as a high-end number 2, if not a, low-end number 1, and be a massive complementary interior rusher to all those guys they have in Denver. So definitely keep an eye on Draymond Jones this year. Played really well last year, especially down the stretch. Started to reach that potential. I think this year it can really click into place. My number 2 breakout candidate, going to get some Raiders love in here, but I'm not just doing it because I've been mean to Raiders fans. I genuinely believe Bryan Edwards is due for a massive season. I wasn't the biggest Bryan Edwards fan. I didn't think he separated a ton in college, but something clicked or something popped seeing him for the Raiders. Now, he didn't get full starting opportunities last year. Nelson Aguilar was playing well. You got Renfro, of course, there. And then they had John Brown. Sorry, not John Brown. They had Henry Ruggs, who they're really trying to force the ball to. Now, everything is trending dramatically upwards for Bryan Edwards right now. Not only did he look really good when they called his number last year, but he gets a ton of preseason hype. I'm not buying into this, but Gruden says he's a hybrid of Terrell Owens and Randy Moss, which is just stupid. He's not going to be that good. But I think he can emerge as a star receiver. But the biggest thing that happened here was they ended up cutting John Brown basically because he wasn't better than Bryan Edwards. And John Brown is a really good player. They gave him $6 million guaranteed or something like that. Had a really good year for Buffalo last year. He's a guy that in Bryan Edwards' role as that perimeter receiver shouldn't be losing a job to a guy like Bryan Edwards. And I think that's a testament to the development Bryan Edwards has shown here. He's a big dude, 6'3", I don't know, like 210 pounds probably. Looks like maybe 220. Great ball skills, but has some speed. Coming out of South Carolina, he has some Alshon Jeffrey comparisons as well, a little bit faster. So Bryan Edwards, I think, poised to not just be a full-time starter and have a really good season, but it's almost trending at this point like he could actually be a better receiver than Henry Ruggs, who they spent a first-round draft pick on last year, a very high one. So Bryan Edwards, huge breakout, number 2 on my list. And then number 1 is a second-year player as well, Kyle Duggar for the New England Patriots. I think this guy emerges as a superstar, strong safety, somewhere as a cross between maybe, I don't know, Adrian Amos and Jamal Adams, somewhere in that category of safety. 6'1", maybe 6'2", 220 pounds, built like a linebacker, but runs like a corner. Like, he is super fast, coming out of Lenoir-Rhyne, I think. And in a Bill Belichick defense that Bill's going to put this guy in the right positions to succeed, which is going to be in that kind of intermediate area of the defense. Sure, he'll come up and play some linebacker. He'll spend time covering slot players and tight ends. He'll rotate high in cover 2. A true do-it-all, strong safety, and a perfect fit for Bill Belichick's defense. He was the first guy they targeted in that draft. And now having a full opportunity to be a full-time starter, Patrick Chung is officially all the way out. And Duggar looked really good in last season. Kind of as the season went on, he got more and more playing time, handled more and more things. Kyle Duggar is my number 1 breakout for this upcoming season. And I cannot wait to watch that Patriots defense in general. So that is my top 10 breakouts list. I'm going to take a short break here. And when we come back, we are going to get into my top 100 players for the 2021 NFL season. So I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. And now it is time for the TFG Top 100 Players for the 2021 NFL season. And these are going to be not the players that I necessarily think finish the season as the best 100 players or necessarily the 100 best players from last year. These are just the 100 best players in the NFL right now, in my opinion. And I don't know if that's the same criteria as the NFL Network's list. I frankly don't know what the criteria for the NFL 100 list is, because it's supposed to be a list from last year, but then they'll just put players in the top 50 that didn't even play last year. So that list is just absolutely terrible. A lot of people wanted to see a real top 100 players list, and this is my attempt at doing so. So let's go ahead and get into it. I do have some honorable mentions, just some guys that fans are probably going to be upset that aren't off the list, but these guys were right on the cusp. So Adam Thielen, James Bradbury, Marshawn Lattimore, Kevin Byard, Chris Godwin, Vita Vea, Tyron Smith, Odell Beckham Jr., and Michael Thomas. A lot of these guys are either one-year breakouts from last year, getting up there in age, guys that haven't stayed healthy, just guys that are, when healthy and in full force or what they were last year, probably top 100 players, but just, it's a tough list to crack. But let's kick this thing off with number 100 on my list, J.J. Watt. Kind of describes what I just had there with those honorable mentions. Don't really know what we're going to get from J.J. Watt this year. Just last year, he was able to stay healthy, which you can't say about J.J. Watt the 2 years before that. But was just a very good player, not an elite player last year. And I think getting cut from Houston, getting somewhere in that $13 million range, I think that goes to show you he's a very good player, wants to go try to get a ring, but he just isn't that elite game-wrecking J.J. Watt that he used to be. Needless to say, though, he's still a very good football player. I think he still gets you about 55, 60 pressures, maybe, 9 to 10 to 11 sacks, and is going to be an impact for that Cardinals defense that needs to step up and improve this year. So I still think a very good player worthy of the top 100 list, though a little bit lower than days past. Number 99, Darius Leonard. I've been very clear that I'm much lower on Darius Leonard, but I still think he's a top 100 player in the NFL. His just leadership and weird ability to create turnovers does stand out. Like, he's very good at punching the ball out. He has that kind of hype mentality. I get why Colts fans like him, but at the same time, he's not an elite thumper in run defense. Like, just his ability to get off blocks in between the trenches isn't elite. It's very good, don't get me wrong. And his coverage certainly isn't elite. He's kind of average to above average, just coverage defender. Certainly in man coverage, he really struggles. He just isn't a high-end athlete. And in zone, he just doesn't always get the depth he should, and he doesn't, abandon his territory and go after players as much as guys like Kendricks and Warner. So the negative narrative around Darius Leonard is just that I don't think he's in the elite tier of linebackers. But I still see him as a top 100 player in the NFL and worthy of praise. And I guess I get why the Colts paid him, even though I wouldn't have given him $20 million. But I do have another linebacker actually ahead of Darius Leonard, and Colts fans are going to probably stop watching because this is going to just tick them off that much. But I'm sorry, Demario Davis is a better linebacker than Darius Leonard. He does everything Darius Leonard does as far as run defense and sideline-to-sideline tackling ability. He does those at the same level, if not better, but he has more size and is a better thumper between the tackles, and he has much better range and cover instincts as a cover linebacker. So just from a tape perspective, I don't care what the numbers say. From a tape perspective, there's nothing Darius Leonard does that Demario Davis doesn't do, and there's a lot of things that Demario Davis does that Darius Leonard can't. Both these guys are very good blitzers as well. Now, it's close, I think Darius Leonard's ability to punch the ball out and force turnovers that way, I don't look into his interception numbers. That's just luck. But I think that is a nod towards Darius Leonard. But I'm sorry, Demario Davis, barring age regression here, is a better linebacker than Darius Leonard. Then 97, totally like a player that doesn't get enough respect because he's been on the Jaguars. But Brandon Linder is one of the 5 best centers in the NFL. He's been nothing but a rock for an offensive line that's been okay for them. I think you can credit a lot of Gardner Minshew's success to Brandon Linder and his ability to provide good pass protection for Minshew. He's a good run blocker. And just an overall underrated player that needed some respect here. So Brandon Linder going to make the list. Justin Jefferson at 96, definitely a player that Vikings fans hope ascends this list and doesn't have kind of a sophomore slump and falls off. But there's really no reason that should happen. Jefferson is scrappy, he's fast, he has outstanding smooth hands, run after catch ability, elite. Great scheme fit there with that Shanahan offense as well. So Justin Jefferson, 96 after a rookie season, when there's a lot of good receivers on this list. Pretty damn impressive. Number 95, Leonard Williams. He gets a lot of crap because he got paid a ton of money and he's not an elite pass rusher. But he's a very good pass rusher and he is an elite run defender. And the thing I like the most about Leonard Williams, and you guys can revisit my Giants deep dive to see this more in depth, but he allows the Giants to run that 3-3-5 kind of new hybrid defense that Patrick Graham has designed there. His ability to line up as an edge on early downs and slide inside and provide pass rush inside, his versatility is key for that defense. And I understand why they paid him all that money because they couldn't run the same defense without Leonard Williams. And it's not that he can't brush the passer. Like, he's a good number 2 pass rusher. He'll get you 55, 60 pressures, 9 to 10 sacks. He's not Chris Jones, but he's still a very good player. And then we have Quinnen Williams. I'm not going too far. Another defensive tackle style player that plays in New York. He's a guy that should ascend this list. He looked like a top 10 defensive tackle last year, both in run defense and as a pass rusher. Was he the number 2 overall pick a couple years ago? So the expectations are there. Athletic dude, can beat you in a lot of different ways as a pass rusher. Dealt with some off the field issues that he has straightened out and now has a great coach in Robert Saleh ahead of him. So Quinnen Williams definitely trending upwards. Number 93, Joe Burrow. He's going to make the list for me. Now, I love Joe Burrow. I've been about as big of a Joe Burrow stan as you will see. I've called him a top 10 quarterback. I've compared him to Tom Brady as far as his leadership and just desire to win. I really do feel that good about Joe Burrow. Do I feel that good about the Cincinnati Bengals allowing Joe Burrow to be Joe Burrow and to finish this list as a top 100 player? No, I'm a little worried about the offensive line. I'm worried about Zach Taylor. I'm worried about the front office. You name it. But if Joe Burrow can, transcend everything here in Cincinnati, at least he has good receivers. It's going to be a testament to Joe Burrow's leadership and his talent. I've talked a lot about Joe Burrow. He's going to make this list, and this was intentional to put him right next to Justin Herbert. Now, I'll put Justin Herbert ahead of him because we've seen more from Herbert in the NFL. Though, if I had to bet on it, who has a better career, it's close because I think Herbert's got a great surrounding situation. But in a vacuum, I would bet on Joe Burrow. But I will rank Justin Herbert ahead of him for now. Outstanding rookie season. I thought his development as far as processing and composure under pressure was just really remarkable when you compare to what he looked like at Oregon. All the talent in the world. I said when he got drafted that the second he enters the NFL, he will have a top 5 arm in the NFL, and that aged correctly. He's got a piss missile for an arm. His ability to throw with accuracy anywhere on the field is elite, and that's something he has on Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow doesn't have that, put the ball wherever he wants, whenever he wants arm. So that's something that Herbert does have working in his favor. So 2 young quarterbacks that I think are ascending. These guys are always going to be linked together, but I'm just going to celebrate these 2 guys together as top 100 players already after being drafted last season. Mike Evans at number 91. I've talked about how, I'm a little lower on Mike Evans. He's probably going to be higher on a lot of people's lists. I just personally think that receivers that can run every route in the playbook and separate against anybody are more valuable than a guy like Mike Evans, who's more of a, run 9 routes, go win contested balls. There's definitely a place and a time for Mike Evans, and certainly a top 100 player in the NFL, but there's going to be a lot of receivers that rank ahead of Mike Evans that people disagree with. But still, an outstanding impact for the Bucs is a big part of what makes the Bucs the best receiving corps in the NFL and should be poised for a big season as well. So now we have 81 through 90, and because this is more of a right now list, I have Dak Prescott in here, but let's... I screwed up. Whoops, that is a mistake. We have Dak Prescott twice. So I guess put Odell Beckham at 100, who I think is poised for a big year this season. We'll put Odell Beckham at 100, and that actually is going to make Dak Prescott 89. So sorry about that, guys. You guys know I've had a few typos in my history here. Okay, so Dak Prescott is actually going to be 80, and I screwed up. I have Dak Prescott on this list twice, so we're going to roll with it. So if you go back to my honorable mentions list, I had Michael Thomas at the top there. So Michael Thomas will come in at 100, who we don't need to talk about Michael Thomas, but 81 to 90, Dak Prescott will come in at 88, and Terry McLaurin will be at 89, so that will make Mike Evans 90th. So my apologies for screwing up the list here, but you'll just have to roll with me there. So our 89th player, Terry McLaurin, just ahead of Mike Evans, and that is the separation versus contested catch ability showing up there. Terry McLaurin has had 2 unbelievable seasons as a young player, doing it all as their number 1 receiver with miserable quarterback play. And just getting Ryan Fitzpatrick this year is a massive upgrade for him. That shows you what he's been working with. Terry McLaurin is an underrated player. He's been on a team that hasn't gotten a lot of publicity, and he's produced, and man, is his tape good. He has excellent release. He has speed to be a vertical threat. He has great hands. He attacks the ball well. He's explosive with the ball in his hands. That is the type of do-it-all receiver play that I prefer to a guy like Mike Evans. So Terry McLaurin getting some respect there. And then 88 will be Dak Prescott, who gets the nod over guys like Herbert and Burrow, because this is a right now list. I think I would rather have Herbert and I'd rather have Burrow from a long-term perspective, just as far as upside goes. But right now, Dak Prescott is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. He has excellent processing. He's tough. He doesn't make mistakes. He has athleticism. He has really good accuracy as well, though kind of comparable to like Joe Burrow. I just don't think he has that high-end arm talent, that see-ball, hit-ball arm. He doesn't have that full command of the ball whenever he wants. He kind of needs to be from a clean pocket if he wants to be accurate really deep down the field. But you are getting a little more nitpicky, but that's what you do with top-end quarterbacks. I also think just his, poise on third down, it's not at that top elite tier either. I think he takes checkdowns a little bit too often. And he's a little, he's very much just like, I'm going to put it up for my receivers to go make a play as opposed to maybe buying time to find a more open option. Sometimes that works because he's got great receivers and sometimes it doesn't. I feel like we're being very negative about these guys. These are amazing football players, but maybe towards the bottom of the list, some guys that some might expect to be higher. But yeah, Dak Prescott going to make the list here. And then we have Rodney Hudson at 87. So Rodney Hudson is descending. He's up there in age and had one of his worst years last year for the Raiders, but gets traded to Arizona. I think he's in a perfect system. I love that he's only like 6'2", 6'3". I think that's a underrated addition for the Cardinals because Kyler, attack in the middle of the field might help to have a center that's really freaking good, but can also see over his head. But from pass protection, he's an absolute rock. One of the more just brilliant centers as far as blitz protection and getting everyone in the right place. From a leadership perspective, he's going to be huge for that offensive line. Run blocking is fine, nothing elite there, but Rodney Hudson's still one of the 5 best centers in the NFL and a great addition for the Arizona Cardinals. Then we have Andrew Whitworth, another aging, all-pro caliber lineman that's a little bit difficult to know what to do with. When he's been healthy, which is, I shouldn't say that. I should just say, like I said, he's a weird player to deal with because he's a 39-year-old tackle coming off a serious injury who kind of rushed back last year and was not the same when he came back. Just difficult to know what he is at this point in time, but let's just say last year before the injury, even at his age, was still an elite top 5 tackle in the NFL. Difficult player to rank. He could very quickly and easily finish on the top 50 of this list because he is that good of a player. But he's going to finish the year at 40 years old. Like, that's just crazy to do at offensive tackle, especially coming off a serious leg injury. So 86 for Andrew Whitworth. Calvin Ridley coming in at 85. Another ascending player, elite route runner, going to have an opportunity to prove that he can be the number 1 receiver for the Atlanta Falcons, and I think he's going to do that. Then we have Lane Johnson at 84, another player that's kind of descending, climbing in age, has dealt with injuries seemingly every other week, but when he's on the field, he is still up there for the best right tackle in football. Now, Ramczyk and Tristan Wirfs have taken that crown from him, but don't forget about Lane Johnson. He's healthy right now, and just the Eagles' offensive line in general, with Brandon Brooks coming back as well, has some superstars that people, I think, have forgotten about. Then we have Stephon Tuitt. Now, he's kind of the third piece in that pass rush behind Cameron Hayward, behind TJ Watt. So he benefits from a situation that's conducive to him succeeding as a pass rusher, but man, does he succeed. He is still one of the top pass rushing interior guys, 6'6", super quick off the ball, really powerful player, tough player to get your hands on. So Stephon Tuitt cracking the 100 list. Tyrann Mathieu at 82 and Budda Baker at 81. These guys, it's tough for me to separate. These guys are very similar stylistically. They play kind of that hybrid safety role, different defenses, but guys that have former experience as slot corners. They have range at free safety, but not elite coverage players, I would say. Both these guys are good in man coverage, but they're risk takers and can just, I would just say, be boom or bust as free safeties. Both these guys as well, though, have elite pursuit to the football, both great tacklers and playmakers that can, at least in Tyrann Mathieu's case, force turnovers. So I kind of lump these two together. Budda Baker, I think, is just a more secure tackler and a younger player, so I put him ahead of him. But definitely two players that I think were overrated on the NFL Top 100 list. Then we have Harrison Smith at number 80, another descending player. I got to flip the graphic over here. Another descending player, but he just got a 4-year contract extension and is still a high-end, probably top 5 safety. We'll see how well that contract ages. I thought 4 years was a little risky for the Vikings because he did look like he was slowing down last year, but his IQ, his range, his aggressiveness and physicality and run defense, is still at the top for the NFL. Then number 79, you're sensing a theme with some of these guys towards the bottom of this list, an aging, injury-prone Brandon Brooks. But as far as we know, Brandon Brooks is healthy, and in the 2 years prior, before a big injury last year, he was quite possibly the third best guard in the NFL behind Quentin Nelson and Zach Martin. So he's back, should be full force, and when he's out there, as I said, he is an elite guard that should not be forgotten about. Number 78 is Matthew Stafford, who certainly has an opportunity to climb this season. New system, better situation for his success coming over from Detroit. But Stafford has still been a really high-end quarterback there in Detroit, despite not having a lot to work with, bad play calling, bad receivers. So that's Matthew Stafford. Excited to see how good he can be this year. I personally have MVP bets down on him because of the narrative. But as far as what we know about him right now, some of that stuff is a projection. So I think 78 is a good spot for Matthew Stafford. Then number 77 is going to be Frank Ragnow, another Detroit Lion. I think he has a chance to cement himself as the best center in the NFL. I think he's already the best run-blocking center in the NFL. It's just about establishing that elite end consistency as a pass protector. But an ascending player, just got paid as the highest paid center in the NFL. I don't think he made the NFL Top 100 list, but absolutely worthy of this list. And then Brandon Sheriff right ahead of him at number 76. Still high-end, top 5 guard. Is a big part of Washington's success, especially in the run game. He is a complete mauler, so a high-end guard right there. Number 75, Xavier Howard. Here comes the Dolphins hater again, just ripping the Dolphins. I'm not going to change my opinion on these guys just because Dolphins fans are mad that I'm lower on some of these guys. Xavier Howard got a ton of picks last year, and he has some of the best ball skills of any corner I've ever seen. But from a coverage perspective, he's just a very good corner. He's not an elite corner. So you pair that together, you get a top 100 player. You get a guy that is worth paying and is a huge contribution to one of the best secondaries in the NFL. But maybe a little bit lower than some Dolphins fans would have hoped. I think he was on the top 50 list for NFL, but still cracking the top 75. I'm not saying I hate Xavier Howard, but maybe just some, I don't even want to say weaknesses in his game. Just not quite as good from a coverage perspective compared to the top guys as a lot of Dolphins fans would think. Shaq Barrett at number 74. And I almost feel bad for Shaq Barrett because he's produced at the most elite of levels on the edge for now 2 years in a row. But for some reason, I still don't fully trust that he can repeat it. He's an undrafted guy, got a $760,000 contract to sign with the Bucs last year or in 2019, which I did think was stupid. I thought he was a good enough player to earn a better contract than that. But he just, he doesn't have elite traits as a pass rusher, which typically over time are what win out. He wins with technique, he wins with discipline and effort, and he's a strong player. But 6'2", 250, not elite speed, not elite strength. I just look at a lot of the other edge players that are going to come in ahead of him, and it's I just expect the more freaky players to win out over time. And I certainly don't think the league views Shaq Barrett as a tier 1 edge rusher. But the other thing is, he's produced like that player for 2 years in a row, and it's tough to say that's just going to stop happening. So he's a tough player to rank. 74, I think, is a decent spot for him. Then we have Jonathan Allen at number 73, ascending player. I feel like a lot of these Washington players are both ascending and also kind of under the radar, unknown. Jonathan Allen is one of the more technically proficient just pass rushers in the NFL, and he does it from the D tackle position. He was that coming out of Alabama. Super productive player that just kind of fell. Not the highest end of athletes, but he's got quickness and strength and size. So should just continue for Jonathan Allen with great support around him. Then we have Ollie Marpet at number 72, Joel Bitonio at number 71. Kind of lumped those two together, both probably top 5 guards in the NFL right now. And needed some respect to make this list. I'm not sure either of those guys made the NFL Top 100. And both guys contributing to what were top O-lines last year and should be next year as well. Kyler Murray comes in at number 70. The running ability of both Kyler Murray and what we'll see from Lamar Jackson, I don't know really how to explain it, but on a list like this where, by the way, I'm not trying to really include positional value, I felt like their ability as a runner kind of added some other stuff that maybe you weren't getting with guys like Stafford and Dak Prescott. So take that for what it is, just kind of a different list than just necessarily my quarterback rankings in a vacuum. So just explaining that a little bit. But I do think Kyler Murray's ability as a runner is super difficult to account for, both as a scrambler and in the designed run game. And as a passer, he's a very good player as well. I like his poise in the pocket. I love his deep ball accuracy. It's just his ability to attack the middle of the field that you would criticize. But Kyler Murray's an MVP candidate this year. I love Kyler. Got the J in the background there. So number 70 for Kyler, certainly the opportunity to ascend. Then we have Kenny Clark at number 69. Still a high-end pass rusher, one of the better interior defensive tackles in football. Doesn't get enough credit for his ability as a pass rusher and an elite run defender as well. One of the top paid, most well-deserving defensive tackles to make this list. Number 68, we have, sorry, I forgot to switch the graphic over there. 68, we have another Washington football team player, Chase Young. I do think right now he is an insane pass rusher. But what's scary is what he could be. Chase Young is well documented, should be poised for an outstanding season, and could have even been featured on my breakouts list as well. Heavy expectations that Chase Young can get Washington to be maybe the best defense in football this year. Then number 67, we have Corey Linsley here. So probably the best pass protecting center in football right now, and his ability to communicate and lead the offensive line, pick up blitzes. That's going to be a huge addition for the Chargers. I still don't fully agree with Green Bay letting him go, especially when they use that money to pay a running back, but a huge asset for the Chargers this season, coming in the top 70. Then DeMarcus Lawrence. I feel like he's not even getting the respect he deserves. A little bit of a down year last year, but was still really good. Did he even make the NFL top 100? I don't remember. But he is super powerful and quick off the ball. Getting an inside look at his character on Hard Knocks too. You can tell that, he has that kind of locker room mentality. He's a true leader that people turn to. Just a great voice in that locker room. I wasn't aware that he was such a good dude, just because he's so nasty on the field. I don't know. Different personalities, kind of a quiet, reserved, like dad off the field. But when he steps on the field, this dude is just a monster. Power rusher, he eats you alive. I'm a big fan of DeMarcus Lawrence. I even said he should have been Defensive Player of the Year a couple years ago when he had that big year. So I expect him to be better than he was last year and get back into this conversation, even though he's never left it for me. Minkah Fitzpatrick at 65, just ascending safety. I think he's still learning the position in a lot of ways, which has led to some coverage busts here and there, but that's pretty nitpicky. He's a super rangy, high-end free safety. I feel like we're getting at the point in the list where I don't need to point out as many negatives to explain why they're lower on the list. Minkah probably can ascend on this list. One of the best free safeties in football. A.J. Brown at number 64, just underrated. Weird that we can say that about A.J. Brown, but he's a big part of that Titans offense. I think he's a bigger contributor to their success than Derrick Henry, but people wouldn't admit that. A.J. Brown separates at a high-end level over the middle of the field. Just his ability to run those crossing routes in that Shanahan offense, he might be the perfect receiver for that system. But he took steps up next year as well as a true vertical threat, a guy that can show better ball skills than he has in years past. So an ascending player is going to be a top 10 receiver for me and an elite player for the Tennessee Titans. Amari Cooper at number 63, again, kind of underrated. It's amazing that 9 drops can get people to just freak out and say Amari Cooper just isn't a superstar, because he does have drop issues, and that's part of his game. But his route running at his size with his speed, he's still one of the best separators in the NFL, if not the best. His route running and release paired with his athleticism, route running and release, he's right there with Devontae Adams. I'd probably put him a little bit behind him, and Stephon Diggs and Keenan Allen. But Cooper has athleticism that just isn't available to those other players. So other than, I guess, Diggs. But Diggs isn't as big as Amari Cooper. So I don't get it. Amari Cooper is a true superstar and doesn't get enough credit because I think on primetime TV he has a few drops that people overreact about. Then we have Zadarius Smith at number 62. Premium pass rusher, whether he's lining up as that 3 technique, that stand-up backer role that they use him at, or off the edge. He just beats you in a lot of different ways with his quickness and power. Really unique watch. He does not look like most edge rushers because he's not super fast. He doesn't have bend, but he just sets you up in a lot of different ways and, again, has different techniques to beat you with finesse, but he can also just lower his shoulder and get through you with power on a rip move as well. One of the more productive pass rushers in the NFL over the last few years. Then at number 60, Allen Robinson. The fact that he's been as good as he has with Trubisky and Bortles and Nick Foles, it's insane. Like, if Justin Fields is good, look out for Allen Robinson to enter the Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, tier of the elite receivers, because he has everything you look for. Route running, size, ball skills, release, you frickin' name it. Number 59, Grady Jarrett, underrated pass rusher who hasn't spent a lot of time winning football games in Atlanta, but in the top 5 conversation for pass rushing capabilities. Sorry, I'm a little slow on these graphics. In the top 5 as far as pass rushing capabilities, kind of a poor man's Aaron Donald. Comes in at 6 foot, about 300 pounds. Super fast off the ball, though, and just a load and a handful that is just a weird build, which paired with athleticism and technique is a difficult block for a lot of linemen. Number 58, Justin Simmons, one of the top safeties in the NFL. We talked earlier in the show about that quarters coverage scheme with Vic Fangio, and Justin Simmons has blown onto the scene in that system. Super smart player with elite level quickness. Maybe not the fastest of safeties, but he's certainly got range. And in this system, he moves everywhere. He's a guy that's had slot corner experience going back to college, and it shows. Like, he can flip into man coverage and cover anybody, take out a tight end. He can go up high as a single high free safety. He's got ball skills, tackling. Underrated player there, Justin Simmons. Number 57 is going to be Lamar Jackson. So, again, this is showing some respect to Lamar, of course, for his ability as a passer, but just on a list like this that is supposed to be position value aside, what he adds as far as game planning and his impact as a runner, it really is different, and he deserves a high spot on this list for that reason. I do think he struggles to throw the ball outside the numbers, and he needs to take steps up as a passer if he's going to enter the elite quarterback conversation. But it's difficult also to forget what he brings to the table as a runner. Brian Burns at number 56. Don't need to talk about him. He was on our breakout list. Certainly an opportunity to ascend on this list, but just off of what he showed last year, deserves a spot. Then Keenan Allen at number 55. Still tends to be underrated. And, I can understand a little bit of it because he just isn't a burner, right? He has mid-tier 4-5 speed, and he's not some incredible deep threat. But he's still one of the best route runners in the NFL. He still has one of the best releases in the NFL. He's tough after the catch. He catches everything. He doesn't get enough credit for his ball tracking ability and ability to brush off contact and come down with tough catches. So Keenan Allen, a little bit underrated, coming in at number 55. Stephon Gilmore, difficult player to rank. Was not the same guy he was in 2019 last year. But, he's only 30. He is aging, but I still think he is a premium corner. And this will be a big year for him if he, two things are going to happen this year. Either he shows that he is slowing down and he's going to continue to fall, or, last year, him not grading out as well, giving up more catches, that was, just the Patriots not being as good. Gets back this year with a, better defense around him and shows that he is not slowing down, and he comes back into the top 30. So a bit of a wide range of outcomes for Stephon Gilmore this year. Same thing with Cameron Jordan. Pretty much copy and paste all that stuff. Was not quite the elite player he's been last year. He is a little bit older, but he is still a premium pass rusher, a true number one. But getting up there in age, I think he's 32 years old, so he could continue to drop down. Number 51 is going to be Jamal Adams here. I do expect a bounce back year from Jamal Adams. He probably wasn't a top 100 player last season, but they just gave him that big safety contract, which honestly was less than I thought he deserved. You don't have to go too far back to 2019 when he was probably the best safety in football doing everything for the Jets. And it's just a matter of health for him. He was playing banged up, new team, new scheme. I fully expect Jamal Adams to hit the ground running this year and be a much better impact in coverage for the Seahawks this year. I'm not too worried about a down year last year. Although I am as big of a fan of a Jamal Adams as just an edge rusher joke as anybody else, because who isn't? Then we get into the top 50. Darren Waller, crack of the top 50. Huge, massive breakout season last year. If he does it again, he'll be higher than this next year. But just an elite X-Factor caliber tight end. Can play wide receiver, slot receiver, flex tight end, inline tight end. True do-it-all player. There's a world, George Kittle gets hurt, Travis Kelce takes a step back. George Kittle gets hurt, Travis Kelce takes a step back. Sorry, we're running through a lot of names. Where this is a world where Darren Waller could actually be the best tight end in the NFL this year. So excited to see him keep going. Great story. Just love a good comeback like that. DK Metcalf, number 49. Just his traits. It's absurd that this guy plays wide receiver because he runs like any fast wide receiver. He actually runs faster than a lot of wide receivers. But he's built like a defensive end, and it shows. Like, people just cannot get their hands on him. There's really only one corner in the NFL that can actually cover this guy, and that's Jalen Ramsey. So, yeah, he's not the most refined route runner. Yeah, he's had some drops. He's had some difficulty seeing the ball in traffic at times. But for the most part, this is, up there for the most uncoverable receivers in football. And he could even have a bigger year this year. He probably should, in a scheme that fits him really well. Ryan Ramczyk at number 48. Up for debate. Is he the best right tackle in football? Is Tristan Wirfs the best right tackle in football? Either way, the best right tackle in football is playing in the NFC South. Number 47, Von Miller, another very difficult aging veteran player to rank amidst an injury recovery. The year before his injury, he was about the 40th best player in football. Then he gets hurt, a year older. I don't know what to expect from Von Miller. I really don't. He's had off-the-field issues. He has an incredibly wide range of outcomes, from comeback player of the year, defensive player of the year candidate, because Von Miller in his prime is one of the best pass rushers ever, to actually not being very good at all. I could see a world where he's just out of shape. He's not the same guy. His skills have declined because he's been away from football for so long, and he doesn't even make this list. There's a super wide range of outcomes for Von Miller. Number 46 is Tom Brady. Look, I don't care about the rings when I'm evaluating an individual player. He's going to be one of I think he's going to be the fifth or sixth. He'll be the sixth quarterback on this list because Deshaun Watson's going to make it. He's still a top-end quarterback, dissects defenses, he's accurate, but he just doesn't have the explosiveness and doesn't lead these insane offenses in the same way that these other guys do. Whether you want to watch the tape or look at the production, that's where Tom Brady is for me. He's a top 50 player, good enough player that at quarterback you put him on one of the best rosters in football and you get a Super Bowl team, which is what we saw last year. But he's not a top 10 player in the NFL for me. He just isn't. Number 45 is Eric Kendricks, who I think him and another player that's coming up here are the most underrated players in the NFL. Eric Kendricks does not get the respect he deserves, and I don't really know why. I don't know if it's because his tackle numbers aren't that good, because he's on a defense that doesn't ask him to rack up tackles. There's a lot of different players on that team that will be in position to get those numbers. But Eric Kendricks is the best cover linebacker in football. He is one of the smartest defensive players in the league. His ability to eliminate the first read over the middle of the field immediately and understand what route concepts are coming his way and basically break his zone, go take a guy out of the field, out of the play, and do it without jeopardizing the entire coverage, it's unparalleled in the league. He has also taken steps up as far as his consistency as a tackler. Love Eric Kendricks, super underrated player. Definitely needed to be on this list. Levante David right ahead of him. Similar, comparable coverage abilities. A little bit more consistent in run defense. aging. Both those guys are incredibly difficult to rank. It's just kind of a matter of stylistic preference. I think Levante David is right behind Kendricks as a cover player, but a little bit more consistent in run defense, and he's been able to stay healthy, which has been a knock on Eric Kendricks. Dalvin Cook at 43, his kind of health issues, he's just always been a guy that gets dinged up, but when healthy, he's one of the best running backs in football, and is going to make this list in the top. Bobby Wagner at 42, so you're starting to get that cluster of linebackers here. Bobby Wagner is descending, but descending from being one of the best linebackers ever and one of the most athletic linebackers ever. So even if he's not quite as fast as he used to be, still super fast, he is the biggest of these the big four linebackers, as I like to call him. He has the most size and thumping ability, and he's the best run defender. And again, just a step behind, I would say, David and Kendricks in coverage. So all stylistic preference with these linebackers. Wagner comes in at 42. Julio Jones at 41. Another player with a wide range of outcomes. Yes, he seems to have slowed down, and he does seem to be every week dealing with nagging injuries that he fights through. But for the most part, he's still a top 5 receiver in the NFL when healthy, and excited to see him next to A.J. Brown in an offense that should be perfect for him. If I had to bet, does he end up higher or lower on this list for next year? I would say a little bit higher. I just need to see it first in this new team, but excited to see Julio on that offense. Number 40 is Saquon Barkley, so actually coming ahead of Dalvin Cook here, which is bold. I think if you said put Saquon Barkley on the worst team possible to allow him to be the best version of himself, I think the New York Giants might be that team. They've had just an anemic offense, terrible offensive line. The run schemes have left a lot to be desired. I think if he was in most other teams, there's no doubt that we're talking about Saquon Barkley as the best running back in the NFL. I mean, this dude is a Greek god playing running back. If you just put Giants colors and shoulder pads on Thor, that's Saquon Barkley. So I hope they can put good blocking in front of him. I don't know, but the talent, I don't doubt that Saquon is, in a vacuum, probably the best running back in the NFL. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the grading profile and the statistics to back that up. And then my next player is the guy that, as I mentioned, is one of the most underrated players in the NFL, Jesse Bates. He's even underrated to his own damn team, the Bengals, who are being stubborn to pay him. He's the best safety in football right now, although there's still one more safety that we have not revealed, which is a unique situation, which reminds me, how about we update the graphic there, Marcus, so you can actually see that Derwin James comes in 2 spots ahead of us. Sorry, guys. But Jesse Bates has range, ball skills. He's improved as a tackler. He's shown that he can man up tight ends and come into the box and do some strong safety stuff. Elite safety, pay the man. This dude's a freak and completely underrated. And then number 38, Teron Armstead. He misses some games every year, but when he's out there, he's up there for one of the best tackles in football. Definitely worthy of this list. Really athletic player, can handle speed, can handle power because he's got some size. Excellent run blocker. Very, very good football player. I think, he's kind of the middle ground between Trent Williams and David Bakhtiari, whereas Bakhtiari is the elite pass protector, not so much in run blocking, whereas Trent Williams is an elite run blocker and just a very good pass protector. Teron Armstead's borderline elite at both. So pair that with some injury issues, and you get number 38. Derwin James at 37. I'm confident in him, man. He is healthy. The camp videos, maybe I'm buying into camp videos, but we've seen that translate on the field as well. He's a Greek god playing safety. He has elite cover skills. He has size to defend the run and blitz. Super smart player, high character guy, leader for that defense. You name it, he is the perfect safety. Now he gets to play in a Vic Fangio, Brandon Staley defense. Are you kidding me? Derwin James could not just be comeback player of the year, he could be a defensive player of the year candidate. He was as a rookie. It's just been health. You see those tweets on Twitter that are like, who's one player that if he could stay healthy, if you could wish perfect health on any player, who would it be? Derwin James is that dude for me. Cameron Hayward at number 36, underrated player for the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the best run defenders in the league, but a very good pass rusher as well. I think you can point to a lot of Stephon Tuitt's success and a lot of TJ Watt's success and thank Cameron Hayward for doing a lot of the dirty work there. But he handles those double teams while also getting pressure as well. So Cameron Hayward doesn't get enough credit for that defense. No, he's not a better player than TJ Watt, but neither of them, I think, well, I would just say TJ Watt wouldn't be what he is without Cameron Hayward. I think Cameron Hayward would probably still be who Cameron Hayward is with him. So take that for what it is. Ronnie Stanley at 35. I just think he's ascending, and that's really what it comes down to. Coming back from the ACL injury, he has the athleticism, the pass protection. He's picked super high in the draft for a reason. He has a chance to get up into that tier 1 tackles with Bakhtiari and Trent Williams this season. Tristan Wirfs right there with him. Best right tackle in the NFL, in my opinion, right now. Just part of it is I'm projecting some ascension as far as his technique. Ryan Ramczyk came in about 10 spots lower. Ramczyk's had a little more of that consistency. But Tristan Wirfs, we've had 3 Greek gods now in this 31 to 40. We've got Greek god Saquon Barkley. We've got Greek god Derwin James. Tristan Wirfs is Greek god tackle, and we actually have Greek god pass rusher coming up as well in Danielle Hunter. But Tristan Wirfs' athleticism at the tackle position is unparalleled. He's got strength, speed to move block, anchor to handle power. If he continues to refine his technique to handle the pass rushing moves of some of the top guys in the league, he could not just be the best right tackle in football, he could be the best tackle in football, period. What a freaking pick from the Bucs last year. And then Danielle Hunter at 33. All accounts, we had a Reef on the channel, covers the Vikings for The Athletic. By all accounts, Danielle Hunter, the back injury that he dealt with last year that kept him out, that's behind him. And if that's true, Danielle Hunter was poised for a Defensive Player of the Year caliber season last year, and he should be able to resume that this year. He's also playing pissed off because he's mad at the Vikings for not paying him, but he's mostly just mad about this injury that, it's kind of cost him a lot of money because he was signed before his breakout season for the Vikings to a contract that, Danielle probably should have let go of his agent after that because his agent kind of screwed him as well. He was poised for a breakout season, and then he signed like a 5-year contract making like $14 million a year that if he was healthy last year, the Vikings probably would have restructured that and given him a bunch more money, but the injury really held him back. So he is playing pissed off this year, and his opponents are going to pay for that. I think Danielle Hunter is another Defensive Player of the Year candidate this year and is underrated at this point in time. Then we got Tre'Davious White at 32 and Marlon Humphrey right above him at 31. Tough to pick between these two. I've got Marlon just ahead of him because I think these guys are comparable in coverage. I would actually say Trey White is a slightly better cover corner, but Marlon Humphrey has perfected the peanut punch, and that if that difference in coverage is already so difficult to pick apart, I think the fact that Marlon Humphrey has shown that he's at least going to force 4 or 5 fumbles every year by perfectly timing those punches right after the receivers catch it to force fumbles, that is actually insanely valuable. So that's the nod there to Marlon Humphrey, but both those guys are exceptional top 5 corners. That's going to be cornerback 4 and cornerback 3 right there. Christian McCaffrey at 30. I still don't think he's like a top 10 running back as a true runner of the football. He's in the top 15 for that group. There's a lot of really good runners of the football. But Christian McCaffrey, if he was just a slot receiver, would probably be one of the 3 or 4 best slot receivers in football. So he's doing that at running back with route running and speed after the catch. Explosive player and is going to crack the top 30 in a position valueless list. Again, I forgot to update the graphic there, but there you go. Number 29 is Josh Allen. I just think it's a good spot for him. Just last year, if this was a last year list, he'd be in the top 20. But I also just think he needs to do it again. Bills fans probably are tired of hearing that, but you have 2 really up and down polarizing seasons, and then you have this immense uber breakout. Just statistically speaking, there is reason that he comes back a little bit to being more of like the 50th best player in football. That's why he gets 29. You respect what he did last year. I'm a big Josh Allen guy. One of the most fun players to watch in football. I've said he is the most gifted, most physically talented quarterback to ever play, though I saw some John Elway highlights lately, and I think he might have a case. But Josh Allen at 29, hope he ends up higher on this list this year. Number 28, Fred Warner is going to be the top linebacker for me. I think he's, number one, just the most athletic guy at the position right now, at least of those top four linebackers. But he also kind of has a little bit of everything from those top guys. He's got the size and length to be the run defender of Bobby Wagner. He has the sideline-to-sideline kind of elite pursuit tackling ability of a Levante David. And he has the coverage IQ of Eric Kendrick. And he's also been able to stay healthy. So Fred Warner just got the bag, rightfully so. I think he is the best linebacker in football right now, though you could pick any of those four, and I wouldn't slight you for it. Number 27, Deshaun Watson. I just kind of ranked him non-factoring off-field, which we don't need to talk about, but on the field last year, he was in the top four. He was there, right there with Rodgers, Mahomes, Josh Allen, and himself. Didn't result in wins. They lost some tough, close games that really weren't his fault. But, yeah, there's a lot of demand for Deshaun Watson. Going to fetch 3 first-round picks and probably more. And, that's why. He's one of the best quarterbacks in football when he's out there. Nick Chubb coming in at number 26. He's the most balanced running back in the NFL just as a runner. Just the speed, the power, the vision, the ability to break arm tackles, the contact balance. His efficiency is insane. So he comes in 26. Alvin Kamara, number 25. That's, he's not as good of a runner as Nick Chubb, but I think his impact on the game is a little bit bigger because he's such a great weapon in the receiving game. Pick your poison, really. Alvin Kamara could be an Offensive Player of the Year winner this year. Now that Latavius Murray's been cut, Michael Thomas is out, he's going to get maybe 110 catches this year and then rush for 1,000 yards. He's not the most speedy guy. He's not the most powerful runner, but he's a very good runner, and he's elite in space with the ball in his hands. Nick Bosa, at number 24, another play that I'm super excited to see him get back healthy. What he was able to do as a rookie, stupid. I don't know if we'll ever see a rookie pass rusher as good as Nick Bosa, maybe someday, but it's going to be a long time because he's got the athletic traits. He's not Myles Garrett, he's not Chase Young, but he's not that far behind. But the difference between Bosa and those other guys that took a little bit longer to break out to be one of the best pass rushers in football is Bosa entered the league with like elite technique immediately. So 24 for Nick Bosa, hoping he can stay healthy and continue to actually climb. DeForest Buckner makes the list at number 23. I think he cemented himself as an elite defensive player, and I do not like to throw that player around, throw that name around. I wouldn't even say some of the defensive players on this list are elite defensive players. I do not like to use that word unless I think a player is, a tier 1 true dominant difference maker week after week after week. And I think DeForest Buckner has become that, really taken that step last year, and should continue. His quickness and length is so awkward for offensive linemen to handle, and it results in a ton of pressures and difference-making plays. 22, Stephon Diggs. I think I'm actually maybe higher on Stephon Diggs than some people because he is such a great separator, and I think he doesn't get enough credit for his ability to win contested catches as well, where he really elevates and attacks the football well. The only knock on Stephon Diggs that has kept him outside of really being there with like Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and DeAndre Hopkins is health. He's really missed a couple games every year, but that's a very slight knock, and I do have him in that tier with those other receivers, personally. Chris Jones, number 21. Talk about elite defensive players. He is that guy. It's funny. I feel like it's easy to forget about Chris Jones and DeForest Buckner because Aaron Donald is so much better than those guys, but that's not fair to Chris Jones and DeForest Buckner to compare them to Aaron Donald. In a league where Aaron Donald doesn't exist, these are the best defensive tackles in football and probably get a little more conversation as such otherwise. But Chris Jones is a game wrecker. Super excited as well to see how he looks playing edge a lot more this year. Very similar to Calais Campbell, who went from Arizona to Jacksonville, made that position change, and was, a Defensive Player of the Year candidate, using some of that size differential on the edge to his advantage to become an elite run defender. But then we get into the top 20. DeAndre Hopkins makes the list. Ball skills galore. There's nobody I'd rather just chuck a 50-50 ball to other than maybe Mike Evans, but you get a lot more separation there from DeAndre Hopkins. So pretty self-explanatory there. He's one of the best receivers in football. Made an instant impact for the Cardinals. Number 19, Joey Bosa, just a couple spots ahead of Nick Bosa. I think a healthy Nick Bosa with some growth passes Joey Bosa eventually, but right now Bosa is just so quick off the ball. His get-off with his size is just terrifying, paired with just some of the best technique you'll see from a pass rushing perspective. He might not have speed and bend around the edge necessarily, but super unique player. I'm excited. I don't want to say excited. I'm curious to see how they use him in kind of an awkward scheme fit there as a 3-4 front. He's going to be kind of an outside linebacker, and I don't know. I think in some ways his quickness and length will be favorable in that area, but he's not super fast in coverage, and I don't really want Joey Bosa dropping into coverage all that much. I'd rather have him getting after the quarterback. And I also think from a three-point stance, that really helps his get-off. So I'm curious to see how much do they have him put his hand in the dirt? What kind of role does he play in a 3-4 base defense? Not that they're going to be in 3-4 base a lot anyway, but just a curious observation with the scheme change there. Russell Wilson at 18. First half of the season, Russell Wilson is a top 5 player on this list. Second half, Russell Wilson's more in that 50 to 60 range. Needs to put it together for a full season. But I think the scheme change for Russell Wilson this year, going to that Shane Waldron, Sean McVay, Kyle Shanahan style offense is going to be big for them. I think it helps them get better pass protection with some more moving pockets. They have the receivers to be elite scheme fits as vertical separators. MVP candidate Russell Wilson this season with the offensive change. Big expectations there for that Seattle offense. Then we have George Kittle at 17. Simply put, it's got to stay healthy. I think when he's healthy, he is quite possibly the best tight end in the NFL because his run blocking and run after the catch ability are so much better than anybody in the league. But just as, I guess Jonnu Smith is comparable run after catch, but not the run blocker, obviously. But just hasn't been able to stay healthy, and he's also not the route runner and separator one-on-one that Travis Kelce is. But definitely a top 20 player in the league when healthy. The Niners are getting their superstar back, getting a couple of superstars back. The fact that the Niners lost 2 players in the top 100, top 25 of this list is pretty incredible. T.J. Watt comes in at 16, just kind of that perennial Defensive Player of the Year candidate. And although I think he benefits from getting a lot more one-on-ones than some other edge players because they have Tuitt and they have, obviously, Cam Hayward on the inside, it's pretty nitpicky. He has elite quickness. He's got great technique. He can play with power. I also love what he does in run defense and his ability to drop into coverage and confuse quarterbacks. Just an all-around elite defensive player. In a bit of a contract dispute right now. Interesting to me that the Pittsburgh Steelers aren't really willing to pay him the type of money that his production would indicate. So it is curious kind of what's going on there. We'll see how that plays out. We do have Derrick Henry at 15, so this is my attempt at a position value-less list, and I think Derrick Henry is the best runner of the football right now. I think he's the king of the running game, just because he does something so different with his size and breakaway speed. You see him get off the bus, and the fact that you have to try and tackle this guy 35 times in a game, I do think it has a different level of that wear you down effect that eventually he's going to break one off and open up that running game to get explosive runs. So, I think Derrick Henry has more 20-plus yard runs than multiple teams do over the last 2 years combined. So, top 15 ranking for Derrick Henry. And then number 14 is Jair Alexander, who is totally robbed on the NFL 100 list, along with some other players. But to me, he's the second best corner in the NFL. He is in that tier 1 with Jalen Ramsey. He's the best man-to-man corner in the NFL right now. He's a high-character guy. He's tough. You name it, super smart player. His first step quickness is absurd. It shows in man coverage, and I think in a cover 4 heavy system this year, that change of direction, first step lateral agility and acceleration is going to result in a lot more ball production for Jair Alexander. I think with his head to the quarterback, you're going to see him breaking up a lot more passes and intercepting a lot more balls this year. Because when you're in man-to-man a lot, it is difficult to find the ball with the back head turned to the quarterback. So maybe Jair finally getting that interception production this year to finally emerge as a consensus, like top 15 player, because I think he is, based on last year, and was good the year before that too. Quentin Nelson at 13 with Zach Martin just ahead of him. Didn't really know how to differentiate these guys. I think Zach Martin has been doing it a little bit more consistently and a little bit longer. Quentin Nelson is kind of the fun new toy, his off-field character, his personality, the fact that he was picked so high in the draft and everybody in the pre-draft process loved him so much, and some of his highlight blocks as well. I think he maybe gets some of the credit that Zach Martin doesn't, because I think Zach Martin actually is a little bit more consistently playing at that elite level. Very nitpicky there. Both those guys top 15 players, deservedly so. And then David Bakhtiari at 11, with Trent Williams right above him. I keep talking about this. This is literally a matter of preference. Do you prefer an elite pass protector who's a really good run blocker, or do you prefer an elite run blocker who's a really good pass protector? I do think Trent Williams' run blocking is so much better than any other tackle, especially in that system where he just decimates players on the move. I do think that kind of athletic difference puts Williams just ever so slightly ahead of Bakhtiari in my personal preference. But if you prefer the guy that's just never going to get beat in pass protection, totally get going with David Bakhtiari as well. Now into the top 10. Sorry, you didn't get to see Trent Williams on the graphic there. But behind or ahead of Trent Williams, I have Myles Garrett at 9. If Danielle Hunter is a Greek god of a pass rusher, then I don't even know what that makes Myles Garrett, but this dude is insanely gifted, and you're starting to see some of the technique start to develop, which, coming out, he didn't really need to win with technique because he is such a freak, but you're seeing him put together some different packages of pass rush moves, which if they're already terrified of just your get-off power, speed, and bend around the edge, but then they also have to account for all the different pass rush moves, Myles Garrett was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. I'll just put it that way. Though I will say, I think Khalil Mack, at this point in time, gets a slight nod over Myles Garrett for the best edge in football. Underrated. Just the amount of double teams that he draws. Just if you load up literally any Bears game last year, not that they don't do this for Myles Garrett, but it has a little bit of a different feel and consistency to it with Khalil Mack. It's like if you just watch Khalil Mack, you will notice teams are either chipping him or double teaming him, or he's destroying the play, forcing the quarterback to get rid of the ball like that. It's just a little different with Khalil Mack, watching him play. The amount of teams that know that they have absolutely 100% got to double team Khalil Mack or the play is over, whereas Myles Garrett maybe not quite as consistently having that impact, but pretty nitpicky there with those two. There's a reason they rank right next to each other. You could go either way with those two guys. Devontae Adams comes in number 7 with Tyreek Hill right above him. Another two that are difficult to differentiate because Devontae Adams is the better receiver, like route running. If you just evaluate him, he can beat you in a lot more different ways. He's a more productive player for that reason as well. But I also think Tyreek Hill is the biggest weapon in the NFL, is the most valuable receiver in the NFL, and is the most game-changing player. I think his speed and big play abilities are a testament to that. So just preference, but I think both guys definitely worthy of the top 10 ranking. And then Travis Kelce right above Tyreek Hill. Just tight ends aren't supposed to be able to win one-on-one in the way that Kelce does. I mean, he can beat guys like Denzel Ward consistently one-on-one, and those are cornerbacks. So it's weird ranking Hill and Kelce. I think Kelce is so far ahead of other tight ends at this point in time. Kittle is there with him, but Kittle just hasn't been able to stay healthy. So Kelsey comes in number 5. Jalen Ramsey at number 4. So he's got the athletic gifts paired with the size and the IQ. He is the cornerback that you would build in a lab. While we keep saying Greek gods, Jalen Ramsey is the Greek god at corner, and maybe that's a video concept for the future, is who's the Greek god at each position. But it's definitely Jalen Ramsey at cornerback. Can really do it all, and is definitely the best zone corner in football, the best press corner in football, and I would say probably, second or third best man corner in football. So elite of the elite defensive player there. Aaron Rodgers comes in 3rd for me. Patrick Mahomes, number 2. We've talked about these guys forever. This list has gone on forever. You can see my deep dives if you want to hear me break those guys down a little bit more in depth, but that's my list of those 2. And then Aaron Donald, number 1, again, speaks for itself. And that is my top 100 player rankings at this current time for the 2021 NFL season. That was a banger to get through. I hope you guys enjoyed. We are going to wrap up real quick with my Patreon mailbag questions. So again, if you want to submit questions to the show and you want to support the show in the process, head over to my Patreon. It's patreon.com/ThatFranchiseGuy. And if you want to submit questions, guys, do it through my DMs there on Patreon. I check all of them, and we get to them at the end of the show. So here we go. Finally catching up on the Patreon mailbag. So this is from Adam Bowman. Who would you say is a more dynamic duo if they were to play together? The Watt brothers or the Bosa brothers? Man, they're both so different. I think I would go, and let's assume they're in their prime, because right now it's obviously the Bosa brothers, because JJ just isn't in the same tier as those other 3. But I think the combination of JJ and TJ playing in a 3-4 defense where you have JJ as the 4-eye technique and then TJ on the opposite end, that might be the more dynamic. I think you can do more things with that combination from a scheme fit perspective. But I mean, the Bosa brothers, it's tough not to pick them too. But I think just because of what JJ can do as a D end in a 3-4 defense, and TJ Watt being the perfect 3-4 outside linebacker, that's probably the more dynamic duo, if that's the question. From Raging Crocodile, what are your favorite fantasy sites that I would recommend? So if you're more, single year redraft league and in a league with more, I guess, casual players that aren't super in depth, I always say ESPN just has the more user-friendly interface. But ESPN also just has such a lack of capabilities. For Dynasty right now, I do like my fantasy league. The interface sucks. It's kind of complicated, but it has it works the best and has the most features for a Dynasty league. I will say Sleeper is growing on me. I'm pretty sure the Fantasy Footballers designed that app, and for a while it's had a lot of bugs, and the interface has been a little complicated, but I think they've made some good changes, and Sleeper is growing on me. It might be worth checking out Sleeper, but hope that answers your question. From Christian Slater, as a Saints fan, how do I get into the season after losing my favorite player of all time, Drew Brees, I'm assuming, while Michael Thomas tries his hardest to become the most unlikable star in the league? Agreed. I would say, enjoy Jameis, enjoy good coaching, enjoy good line play. There's still a lot to like with the Saints, and I would say that there's brighter horizons ahead. You have an elite front office, you have an elite coach, you have an elite offensive line. Treat it as a transition year and appreciate some of the things that the Saints do really well, would be my best answer to that question. From Jacob Bouzard, do your thoughts with Michael Thomas change with the news coming out that the Saints didn't want him to get surgery during the season with hopes that he'd play injured in the playoffs? No, not really. I mean, I trust that their doctors felt like it was an injury that he could play through. And players ask team, actually not even that, players want to play through injury all the time. So if he's now, using that as an excuse. Like, my thing with Michael Thomas is, yes, sure, like, you don't want to play through injury, like, you want time in the offseason to have your off time, like, that's all good and well, dude. But there's a different expectation when you're making $21 million. The expectation is that you'll play through injuries that you can play through. The expectation is that when the offseason hits, you will get the surgery as soon as possible so you're good to go for the next season. That really doesn't change anything for me. Look at Andrew Whitworth. Like, do you think the Saints had to ask him to play through injury? To come back from at 39 years old to, come back and, what was it, an MCL tear or something, to come back and play in the playoffs? No, Vita Vea for the Bucks. Like, do you think they forced him to play? No, I think Vita Vea wanted to play. So, Michael Thomas, if you're going to be this tough guy, this internet tough guy, be a tough guy on the field too, and just get the surgery. Fitting that our last question was Michael Thomas is trying to become the most unlikable star in the league. Yet again, just there's a lot of signs that point to Michael Thomas just not being a very likable dude. I'm sorry if that pisses you off, Saints fans, but it's just my honest opinion on it. From Justin Daniel, favorite Magic Spoon flavor? Let's go. We get a mailbag question that helps me promote my promo code FranchiseGuy for Magic Spoon. I do love Magic Spoon. Go check it out, guys. You can support the show and save $5 on your first purchase of healthy cereal. But my favorite flavor is the peanut butter because I was a big Reese's Puffs fan back in the day, and Reese's, it's not quite as sugary, it's not Reese's Puffs, but it gives you that same nostalgic taste and you don't hate yourself afterwards. But I like the cinnamon one they got rolling right now. I like the Fruit Loops one just because that one actually does taste very close to Fruit Loops. And then if you want a fourth flavor, if you're going to buy the variety pack, cinnamon, peanut butter. The Frosted's pretty good. Kind of tastes like Frosted Flakes. Cocoa. The Cocoa's good. Pretty close to, the Cocoa Puffs. From Nicholas Craig, if Andrew Luck were to come back and play right now, where would I rank him out of all 32 quarterbacks? I would say, because I had him just above Russ when he left, but his arm talent did seem to be falling off a little bit. I think that's part of his retirement. I would say I'd probably put him 6th behind Josh Allen and ahead of Tom Brady if he were to come back right now. Edward Green, based off preseason games only, which QB looks the most NFL ready? Mac Jones looks incredibly comfortable. His poise in the pocket and his ability to navigate pressure really stood out to me when I was evaluating him. Just as a trait that he wasn't getting enough credit for, because that's like, obviously the Tom Brady comps were going to come out when he went to New England, but like the reason Tom Brady has been an elite quarterback throughout his time and been such a high-level player despite not being a great athlete is he extends plays inside the pocket. And I thought Mac Jones did that at Alabama when he was actually pressured, which wasn't all that often, but that's kind of shown. And I think that's translated with his processing and his accuracy. Mac Jones looks the most ready to go, but Zach Wilson, I think, also looks really sharp. I said before the draft, my gut tells me Zach Wilson's going to be a better NFL quarterback than Trevor Lawrence, even though I did rank Trevor Lawrence ahead of him. I think Lawrence has looked pretty good for a rookie. And then the other two, I think, have looked about like I expect. Fields, the big plays are going to be there, the play extension, the arm talent, the beautiful throws, all that, the accuracy down the field. But the same stuff with the Fields that I've criticized him has also showed up where like he will glue in on first reads. For all of the people trying to dismiss that being an issue in the draft by saying, look at how good he is when he throws to his second read and all these numbers, like, that was the argument, and it's like, yes, when he does it, it's beautiful. That's why he's such a great prospect and why you hope you can get that out of it more. But the tape didn't lie with Justin Fields, and it hasn't in the preseason. He is slow to get through those progressions, and it's been more of the same, and that's why I think it's healthy for him to sit so that you can get him to speed up that processing a little bit. And Trey Lance, just as I said coming out, said he's the most likely to have a Hall of Fame career because he's going to San Francisco, but I also thought he was the least day one ready quarterback, and that is totally showed. You've seen the flashes, absolutely, but he looks like a quarterback who hasn't played football in a year, who never played with the lead at D1 AA football. That's really what it came down to with Trey Lance, is he didn't have to make a lot of tough decisions at North Dakota State, and he's going to have to in the NFL. So that's my answer to your question. Let's get to the next one from Colatron. How crazy am I thinking that Matthew Stafford will be a dark horse MVP candidate / top 5 quarterback next year? Not crazy at all. I've said it myself on this channel. I've got MVP bets down on Matthew Stafford, and I can't wait to watch him play. Football season starts tomorrow, man. I'm so excited. We got a few more questions here. Maybe just a quick sip of water because I'm losing my voice. In a 3-4 base, this is from Bryden, what is the difference in a guy playing the end position or the nose tackle spot? It's pretty, it's as simple as you would think. It's size and ability to take on double teams. The defensive ends in a 3-4 base are going to be, stunting a lot more. They've got to shoot to different gaps. You got to line up as a 3 technique or a 4-eye inside the tackle between the guard. Sometimes you got to loop over and shoot the A gap. Sometimes you got to squeeze the outside and play the C gap, which requires you to be a lot more quicker. But in those spots, you're also likely not drawing as many double teams because that's the job of the nose tackle, to line up right over the center or as a 1 technique where with that size, like the expectation is you're going to get double teamed. That's really the biggest difference. So hope that answered your question. From Tomsky, I have a little experiment for you. You're the Packers GM. You can add 1 player to the Packers for 1 year without any cap hit. Who would you do to win a Super Bowl? Well, I think that, Aaron Donald's kind of the obvious answer there because he's the best player in football, and I don't think it matters what your scheme is or what your needs are. If you add Aaron Donald, that's going to be the biggest improvement you can make. But I think to cater to your question a little bit more, my answer is Aaron Donald because they don't have a good number 2 rusher, but on the inside. But that's not their biggest need. If you could fill the number 2 corner spot with Jalen Ramsey and have Jair Alexander and Jalen Ramsey, that might actually be the biggest improvement you could make. So I would say one of the 2 Rams players, either Aaron Donald or Jalen Ramsey. Ramsey does also know that scheme. Well, so does Donald. So Aaron Donald, then Jalen Ramsey would be my 2 picks there. Jake Daughtery, with Deshaun Watson rumors back in full swing, if you're the GM for the 2 reported front runners, Miami or Carolina, what would I realistically to give up to get him with the uncertainty of the off-the-field issues? This is such a tough question. You do have to look yourself in the mirror if you're trading for Deshaun Watson, because even if these things are cleared, it seems pretty obvious that these things happened, and you are now making this guy the face of your franchise. So, if the owner is cool with it, and I know it's going to win me football games, I will proceed with that. But I think you have to take a serious look in the mirror from an ethical perspective if you trade for Deshaun Watson. But let's assume that we're making the deal, and I'm all in on acquiring him to be the face of my franchise. I think to compete with the other teams, you've got to give up 3 first-round picks, probably a couple second-round picks, and then you're giving them, in Miami and Carolina's case, you're giving them Tua or you're giving them Darnold. That's probably what the trade looks like. 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and then the quarterback in place there is probably what the trade would be and what I'd be willing to give up. I think his impact on the field would return those picks. From Drew Smith, did watching some of the preseason games change your opinion or power rankings of any teams from the deep dives? The Steelers are rising for me. I think Big Ben looks all right. I think the offensive line is coming together. That was a team that, they had a couple glaring weaknesses, but they also just, they traded for Akello Witherspoon, gives them another option at cornerback too, instead of just Lane from Michigan State. But I think Pittsburgh Steelers are on the rise. The Vikings have had some injuries. I'm souring on them. Christian Darrisaw, Wyatt Davis have not really hit the ground running like you would hope, so the buzz is falling off of the Vikings a little bit. Other than that, hard to say. I think Carolina, I thought Darnold looked pretty comfortable. I thought Terrace Marshall looked good. I think for the Patriots, how good Mac Jones looked was kind of the story of the preseason, honestly. He looked incredible, frankly. Literally looked like they plugged Tom Brady back into that offense. So that's just to name a few. Yeah. Next question from Loomer. What's your opinion on the Chiefs cutting Cornell Powell, and what's my take on Darius Fountain? I liked Fountain coming out as a late-round flyer. He's got a super high vertical, physical player, good ball skills, can be a vertical option for them. I think he just beat out Cornell Powell. They're very similar. They're both like 6'2", big physical dudes. I think Fountain's just probably a little bit more explosive, and they gave the nod to him. Probably was just creating a little bit more separation. I bet they keep Powell on the practice squad. But that was the thing with Powell is he was a 4.6 40 guy. And that Chiefs offense does eat on speed. So I like Powell. I like his game. I think he's shifty. I think he's tough. Just maybe not the right team for him. But it does seem that Fountain just beat him out. More experience in the pros. He's in his third year. So I think Fountain is a sneaky guy to keep an eye on for sure. From Coyote, if Bill O'Brien was somehow the Rams GM and he traded Aaron Donald for David Johnson and a conditional second-round pick, how would the Texans' pass rush rank? And how would the Rams be? I love the workaround way to ask your question, that it has to be Bill O'Brien being an idiot. But the Texans with Aaron Donald probably rank like 4th or 5th, which is crazy because they have nobody else. You're hoping, maybe that opens some things up for Whitney Merciless, that hopefully allows a guy like Blacklock to take a step up in his second year as a second-round pick. Jacob Martin, yeah, probably like 5th or 6th for the Texans, and then the Rams without him just might rank 32nd. Leonard Floyd doesn't offer much on his own. Okoronkwo, Lewis, okay on the edge. Like, you're really counting on them to prove that they can be starters. Myers and not Myers, Sebastian Joseph Day, and Ashawn Robinson, Gaines on the inside. Yeah, I think the Rams probably dropped down to dead last without him. So Aaron Donald does make that big of a difference. From Jacob Anthony, what's your thought on Cam Newton's cut and the reports coming out that Mac Jones was helping Cam Newton learn the playbook per Rob Ninkovich? Wouldn't that be Rob Ninkovich? Didn't he play for the Patriots? Sorry, just spelling error, which he clarifies. But anyway, the Cam Newton cut was definitely interesting. I think that and the Tyron Johnson were the two biggest surprise cuts. As far as reports that Mac was helping him learn the playbook, I'm not going to really speak on that. I don't know I haven't heard anything about that. But I do think this idea that there's two sides to this. I do think there was a part of Bill Belichick that wanted to cut Cam because I think he doesn't want any backups that aren't vaccinated. I do think there may be something to that, but that's just speculation. There was a report that there was an agreement between Belichick and Cam where they basically asked Cam, like, do you want to be a backup or do you want us to cut you so you can go play somewhere else? I think that's probably the more likely outcome here. Now, I don't think Cam Newton's going to get a starting job anywhere. I think being a backup in New England for a rookie quarterback would have been maybe the best gig for Cam Newton. So I disagree with his decision if he thinks he could go and be a starter somewhere. At this point in time, that's just not going to happen. If he's going to sign this year, it has to be as a backup because everyone's got their starters locked in. Maybe Houston if you want to go that route and try to beat out Tyrod, but it's going to be a few weeks before you do. And even then, it's like they're already going to be 0-5. Why would they put Cam Newton in when they could put, the rookie in? So I don't know. I don't think there's a starting job in the NFL for Cam right now. From Donovan Dorsha, which QB is better, Joe Burrow or Justin Herbert? I'm just going to enjoy these guys' seasons. We will find out who the better quarterback is. We didn't even get a full season of Joe Burrow last year. Herbert's got a much better situation. probably, is going to have an easier time becoming a better quarterback, whereas Burrow, I believe in as a player a little bit more. I love Joe Burrow's game. I think he's Tom Brady from the waist up, Aaron Rodgers from the waist down. So I'm not going to answer that question right now. I don't think we need to. These guys are always going to forever be linked, and Bengals fans and Chargers fans, you guys can go at it, but I'm not going to participate in that. I rank them right next to each other. Although I did put Herbert above him. If you want that to be your answer, you can. So that is going to do it for this episode of the Fully Inflated Football Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube, where you can catch this podcast live every Wednesday now at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Also, you can catch the audio feed shortly after that up on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And we'll have my weekly picks tomorrow before they head over to Patreon for the rest of the month, but they'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. And hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Please leave a review if you're on the Spotify version or the audio version. And until next time, guys, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Peace.